Hi, Chris.
Strawberries. Kidding. Hi,
Already?
Christina. No.
Oh, for everyone listening, that's the code word for shitty audio, but I think we're okay. What,
We're
Chris?
great.
Now I'm all paranoid.
It's all love, baby. All love.
Yeah, well, today I'm really excited. This guest kind of landed in my lap a couple of days ago, and I know as much about him as Chris does. And this is my neighbor, Noah, and he is in the building right behind me as we speak. So, Noah, thank you so much for coming and for letting us completely explore in your other areas.
Well said. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Yeah. So, do you think we need to know anything about him, Chris, or shall we just jump into it?
Now let's save the intros for the end because I don't want to be colored by anything he might share because things are coming through pretty quick. Yeah.
Me too. Oh my gosh,
All
like
right.
an explosion. We got orbs going on. You didn't see them yet because we just started recording, but yeah, we've got a lot of activity around this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chris, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Noah. It's a pleasure to meet you. So you've not had, so you'd heard of the Akashic Records through someone that Christina knows. So we'll give you just a brief overview of what it is. So the process that Christina and I use is called the pathway prayer process. And it's filled with all sorts of Western words like God, Holy Spirit, light. And as a recovering Catholic, I take umbrage to a lot of that. So it's taken time for me to become comfortable with some of the verbiage. So I've swapped things out, as it were. But this particular pathway prayer process that Linda Howe downloaded and has shared is very safe. It's a nice container, and it's a great entry point into the Akashic Records for folks that are new to them, either on the practitioner side or on the reading side. It's a love-based, heart-centered approach to it. So whatever comes through, whether it's direct messages or entities or lights or notions or scenes from movies or imagery, or even just a sense of knowing, is all being delivered to Christina and I through your guides or through your higher self or just your soul or your human spirit, your energy. And the assumption is that if it's being delivered to them or to us through that you can handle it. And it's because it's imagery or movies. And sometimes Christina gets really specific messages. And one time Jesus sat across from her and we were all chit-chatting. It's really up to you to help us help you, if that makes sense. So I may, like for me, what I saw was you finishing a race in like a runner's, I call it like a tank top, and you're just kind of exhausted. And that I have some idea what that means, but as things come to us, we'll explain that to you. And then the more you share with us, the more we can actually elaborate and go back and ask questions, if that makes sense. So there's that. So the Akasha is, in my mind, is the same thing as the quantum field. It's this like plasmatic ball of gooey energy from which all things come, just, energy just sitting out there. And the way that I interpret it is that I'm just as energy myself. I'm just sticking my antenna up, receiving messages, downloading them and giving them to you. Right. So I'm more of a feel person. Did I miss anything, Christina?
No, that was perfect.
Was it?
It was.
Okay. Amazing. All right.
Unless Noah has any questions.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. It tracks with the little knowledge I came in with, and I'm excited to listen to the downloads.
Amazing. So Christina. And then of course, questions are best asked, open-ended questions. So what I tell my clients is that I'm not a magic 8 ball. It's if you're like, will I get married in May? Like, okay, there's no joy in that for me because time is a concept. Time here on Earth as humans, of course, we need it to be able to make some sense of the world that we live in, but time doesn't exist there. Right. So it's like, yeah, sure. It's going to happen. But I mean, they're like, does fall sound good, guys? Okay. Yeah, we'll tell them. Right. So time is a weird thing in the field. So we'll keep that in mind. But the more time I've spent understanding the science behind it and looking at David Bohm, really I'm an armchair quantum physicist, if you will, and even transpersonal psychology. And it's really super consciousness and it's all love. So
Yeah.
what can go wrong there? But the questions open-ended is going to help us. I've already gotten some downloads. Christina, I'm sure you've gotten some downloads. So I'll stop talking and let you kick it off, Christina King.
All right. Well, the first image that I got immediately when I opened, first of all, I have a lot of messages coming through. I know that there'll be a lot for you here. First one is you as the Legend of Zelda, dressed all in green. And it's like, I heard the music, you know, with the sword. And it's like all of these paths, right? All of these things to explore. And a lot of, I got some also Middle Earth kind of energy, a lot of green. And I saw you almost like a hobbit or an elf. So, I mean, it's kind of the same, probably very similar metaphor about perhaps the stage that you are in your life. And I saw like an imagery kind of candles, a lot of candles, but also like Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, and jumping off of the candlestick.
Yeah.
And I got like the first message I got was like, don't panic. You don't have to feel like you have to do something now. And it's like I have like all this urgency, like time is passing and I have to do things right now, or you know, the opportunity is going to move, and it's like the sense of urgency that I'm feeling, that one wrong move and the bomb detonates kind of deal. But what I really got was slow down, take your time, and the things that are going to start falling into place and in front of you are going to do so. You're not going to really, you know, breathe the wrong way and all of a sudden everything goes wrong. So yeah, I don't know if you've been feeling like this sense of urgency, like, oh my gosh, I'm missing all this opportunity if I don't move, and then you feel bad about it, and then you just kind of like, okay, you know, tomorrow I'll deal with this. But there's some encouragement there for you to that you don't have to do it all right now, and you don't have to feel so burdened.
Yeah, I mean, all of that immediately speaks to me in so many different ways. Green recently became my favorite color. Yeah, I love green. I love what it represents. And even just in the modernization of the chakra system, it relates to the heart. And that's like my major focus in life right now is green. Open that guy up, and then just, you know, big heart energy. The Legend of Zelda is funny because I'm a Nintendo child. So like it, you know, there's something relatable in that for me. But having that sort of sense of adventure, the Hobbit going out, the like leaving home and stepping out into a brave new world that I have no idea what's out there. You know, it's a total unknown, and I constantly find myself facing that position. But more and more, I'm excited for this journey. Like, oh, we're taking the ring to Mordor. You know, like this is exciting, even though it's a little scary. You know, but that's like I have a lot of that energy going about, and where I'm feeling exactly that sense of urgency is in developing my business right now, and I'm getting a lot of encouragement from mentors, like, oh, try this and do that and do this. And I'm like, well, okay, here's a dot list. I got so many things to do, and I can get a little caught up in it. But what tends to happen is I'll breathe and, okay, check off one thing tomorrow. Nice. And now really where I'm getting to, and the encouragement there is what I feel in me is like, I don't even have to check off anything today. Maybe I check it off tomorrow. Maybe not. Like then, because I felt like I was slowing down, but listening to that, like, no, I still have a sense of urgency, and I think that I could still slow it down.
So that's interesting. And so thinking of you in this, oh gosh, what was the movie about Turing with Benedict Cumberbatch?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So there's how he would run, which was really out of anxiety, and he was running from something, right? But the outfit was largely the same. So it was white, blue shorts, maybe there's like a red stripe in there. And so I saw you when I was going into your records, just kind of going through the finish line. You weren't exhausted, right? It's like, all right, that was a marathon. Like that was not as big of a deal as I thought it was. So it's like, now you've stopped running. And the question is, you know, and like the stillness, I think still feels somewhat awkward to you. And you know that you being still and being present is of course what you're supposed to be doing. Right. But it's like, do I find another race? Do I go do another marathon? I've kind of been there and done that. And so one, you've stopped running. You don't need to run anymore. If you're running from something or running towards something, you don't have to.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever has happened to you that caused you to run in the first place, it's done. You've put it back. You can recognize that. It's not going to catch up with you.
Mm-hmm.
These are meant to be teachable moments where you, as Noah, the man, the human, it's like, okay, I got through that. It wasn't that big of a deal. I'm stronger than I was before, and I know that I'm capable. So now how do I want to apply this? Does this mean that I go run another marathon? I could certainly go do that. But I've already done it, right? So what is this next challenge? And I'm using physical activity because that's the metaphor that was delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think cardiovascularly, it feels like you're in really good health, right? It's like, well, do I go climb a mountain? Do I go do a triathlon, right? And at some point, there's diminishing returns, right? Because that feeling will always exist after you cross that finish line. And the finish line is very much a human construct and not a spiritual construct. And you cross it, and there's always going to be a desire for more. So the opportunity exists for you now to settle into these aspects of the journey and to consider the adjectives, the descriptive words, and how it makes you feel. When I run this marathon, or when I solve this problem, when I realize that I'm capable, it makes me feel boom. And then to sit into these feelings, these emotions that you feel here in your heart center, and that should help drive the next item on your checklist. If I do this, if one of my mentors told me to do this, am I feeling it here or is it up here? And I would argue that if it's up here, it's probably not important or urgent. And to lean more into this green space has become abundantly important to you, right, going forward. Any questions for Christina and I on what we just shared? It's very similar.
Questions. I don't know. I feel like I just want to relate to it. Like, it all makes so much sense, honestly. Like it's definitely speaking to me in terms of like that being at the finish line and feeling still. I very recently in the last week, hit a point of true stillness and didn't want to move at all, but then still had that in the back of my brain. But I'm a runner, like, should I get up and go somewhere? Like this, it's new. It's very new to me, despite how much I thought I've done it before. I really only have just done it now. And so, yeah, I mean, that largely is related to my spiritual well-being and just meditating and getting to a state of right here, right now, in the real sense, very present tense. And I mean, even related to, because work is on my mind a lot. And so that's what comes up when you say like is it up here in my head or down here in my heart? A mentor who suggested to me, oh, why don't you offer these little tidbits? I do coaching and consulting. So she said, why don't you offer these little tidbits and then maybe add like the science behind that. And because I'm also a scientist, I'm earning my doctorate degree right now. And so I have that capability. But when she said that part, it was immediately in my head. Okay, I'll add the science, but I'm like not really interested in that. I just want to speak to the heart of people, and I know that there's science behind it. I know I can follow it up with that if I have to, but that's not the point to me. So that is kind of reassuring to remind myself that like, yeah, don't listen to the head so much as the heart. I've spent my whole life listening to the head. Give it a break. Let him quiet down for a second. Listen to the heart. Open that guy up,
Yeah.
Yeah, questions. I don't even know. I could ask anything. I'm always interested in like, right now, my main focus really is just like my spiritual well-being. I've had some kind of a breakthrough recently, and my everyday is completely different right now. And so and I can give you an example of that.
Please.
I was meditating the other day, and as I kind of sunk into myself, what came through to me was, you got to open your heart. And so I said, okay, I can do that. I can open my heart. I want to do that. So I thought, what does Noah with a completely open heart look like? And I saw myself out on the bluff here in Long Beach, and I was smiling and walking around, and I was emanating this golden yellow light. And as soon as I saw that, my perspective switched, and I became that version of me. And I saw myself meditating on the floor, and I immediately smiled ear to ear. And I said, I love that guy. And I just shoved love at my present self. And then I felt this insane gratitude that I'm already that holy, open-hearted Noah. And my entire day was just like radiating with that energy. And now every single day when I sit down and do my morning meditation, it's like I'm coming out of it with this full body feeling of absolute total love and like commitment to myself, knowing that I'm opening this channel more and more, and knowing that I'm letting source energy through me to guide myself more and more. And so it's something I've striven for, and something that I'm seeing happen now. And that's like, I can't help but focus on it. It just feels so good.
It's an amazing experience. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. That's you're a great sharer here, and I'm enjoying it very much. So thank you. Mm-hmm. So while you were speaking, I got some other things. So just in case you don't, even before you said you're very concerned, you would like to talk about your spirituality and everything. I saw an image of you. It's you not smiling whatsoever. You're just being. And I saw you kind of like in the desert with like a white shirt on, and then with like a big long necklace, kind of like black like this, with a pendant of some sort, like a blue indigo kind of pendant. So I asked what that means, and it's kind of an indication that you are kind of on the journey at the moment. You are seeking because you're being called, definitely. And I'm seeing some retreats maybe this year with you. I'm seeing retreats, actual journeys, like where you actually have to go out of town into the desert or into other spaces, of course, with people that you are very vibrationally aligned with. So even though perhaps there are a lot of spiritual people out there, there are some you're going to really click with and some you're not, because there's so many things and so many areas, it's just, it's a lot. And you are being led definitely in that direction, which is why you are seeking it. I also got the word whole for you. So it's like you're not seeking yourself, you're already whole. And that I feel is very helpful. It's a very helpful word for you, because a lot of people don't feel whole and they're seeking the pieces. You have the pieces. You kind of already spoke about it already. It's like, what can you be doing? How can you be existing and in that whole state? That's the question. And I think that's the answer is within the journey that you're taking. And so where spiritually you've already kind of signed up for what you're undergoing, all of the education that you're going through, plus the layer of like being spiritually called to do something with it. But at the same time, you have to align with the human part of being Noah, because it's two different spaces, and sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming for the human to feel all of this, whereas spiritually you're like, oh yeah, I know. So there's definitely some exploration. I don't want to say work, because again, the word whole, but definitely some exploration. I did ask because I kind of got this when I first met you, if you should be learning Akashic Records, and I got a big chill through my body, and it was like, yes.
Right. I was like, well, we could teach him on here. And I got the same thing about 5 or 6 minutes ago. Like, did we do it on this one? Well, and what's interesting about that, and Christina is an extremely capable teacher, is that it gives you some, control is not the right word. It gives you a framework in which you have authority, right? And so you can have not random experiences where you're meditating and you're in this ecstatic experience, or you can learn how to understand that we're actually always in this field and to be able to better discern. So yes, and I think that'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to just hearing how those conversations go. It's it doesn't come up all the time when I work with people. I'd say it comes up maybe 20% of the time. It's like, oh, you should teach so-and-so. And then like once you teach, it's like, bam, it's like instantaneous. So the synchronicities are wonderful. When Christina was talking, what I got and was interesting was, and I'll share it. So it was like nature, walks, really tall trees. And I was like trying not to necessarily be influenced by the picture behind you, right? But and then again, nothing's really an accident. But then as you're walking, and so it's like, why am I seeing this? And what are we conveying? And it was for you to learn how to become comfortable with stillness, even while you're moving, and to look for those really sacred experiences, even if it's only an hour. Like if you have an hour away from work or an hour between class, like from study, to like. And what I saw was you with like a black retriever, and it had like something in its mouth. It was just like walking next to you and looking up. So I don't know if the dog resonates, but it's really clear what this dog looks like. It's like a puppy, and it's like a friend and a partner and someone that goes with you on these adventures. And she was on your right, like looking up at you. Like, it's just like the two of you, and this is your companion. So I don't feel like you have a hard time being by yourself. In fact, even we're going to disregard the pandemic, but it's almost as if you don't carve out enough time for yourself to be with yourself and experience yourself. And so rather than trying to create these perfect environments where it's like, okay, I've got the right megahertz on this, and I'm at 432, and I've got the right sage being burnt and the right crystals in front of me, you can go be active in nature and just find a path. And don't wear headphones, just be and just listen and be with your thoughts, and like, oh, like, why am I thinking about this? Like, that's interesting. And the drill there, but it's being provided as a way for you to become more comfortable with the stillness, even though you're not necessarily being still. You will find a rock, you'll find a log to sit on, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. Like you might get the notion like, oh, I'd love to like sit on that like rock, and you keep on walking by it. Right. Like it'd be like, how cool would it be if I meditated on that log for like 5 minutes? And, but you don't stop. So like, it would be worth your time to be able to do that. So the encouragement is for you to go spend a little bit more time in nature, with yourself or with your trusted companion, and just be silent and listen, because there are energies that will communicate and share things with you while you're doing that, consciously or unconsciously. Christina?
I'd like to jump in here. Yes. So when he said trees, I got a hell yes, definitely. And I think that you communicate well with trees. Does that sound familiar? Yes. So there's a lot of wisdom in trees, and I'm getting that you can kind of do that now, but if you start doing like reading Akashic Records and just simply know how, then you can actually open the records of like big old trees and talk to them and get the information. It's really fascinating. If that's the avenue that you want to go down, there's so many different ways to do it. But it comes down to, what do you want? What do you really want to do? Where do you feel pulled? I'm going to ask you that in a minute after I tell you a couple other things. The other thing is,
please.
I think you're a really gentle soul, and you're wired a little bit differently than other guys, maybe your age. And it's kind of like, almost like you feel like a freak, maybe sometimes, or maybe other people are just like, yeah, you're a little off there in that area, buddy, but like somehow you stay the path, you play the roles. So I do feel there is some guarding around your identity, and that's okay, because you're just kind of you don't even know your identity. And that's part of the whole fun of this whole thing, right? You don't even know who you are, and you're in the middle of it. You're in the middle of figuring that out for yourself. And it's a very exciting time, and it's not going to feel that way forever. So I just wanted to, they just wanted to validate that maybe you do feel a little out of place sometimes, and that's okay. And you don't really owe any explanations to anyone, and just own it if you want. If not, then you don't have to disclose. And for right now, that's giving you permission just to be yourself. And okay, so now the question is, what direction spiritually do you feel like you're being pulled? Are you thinking about modalities? Are you feeling a little magical? Are you feeling like you're being pulled energetically, like energy work? I mean, I have no idea what you're feeling right now, so we'd like to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for my ultimate goal in like connecting spiritually is just that connection, right? Reminding myself that I'm no different than everything else, that the same life force that runs through me runs through everything else. And so as I become aware of that in myself, first and foremost, I want to use that awareness through whatever modality comes naturally to me to then spread awareness, right? To then awaken in others who connect with me, and doing just that, connecting, right? Connecting back to that same life force and outside of the singular self. So, what that has looked like in my career, for instance, is that I quit my job and I quit my friend support groups that were all good things, but because my body said stop. And so I stopped. And then immediately, the very next day, I felt space open up in my head, and it was like, start your own business, be a coach and consultant. And so it's like the sneaky career way of me doing just that. My whole mission statement is inspire authenticity. And all I mean is get to know real self, get to know your real self, and bring that out and do whatever that piece of self does, and you're going to be great at it. And so I'm trying to do that in myself too, right, in order to honor that mission. And so what I understand from my own experiences and just from getting to know others in the kind of this spiritual space is that this is the number one fastest, most effective method to get there, right, is to use this source energy to tap into source energy, and I'm not going to use necessarily placebo or psychology or, those things, although all of that is great. And I have that capability. And so I can ease somebody into this really well. And I've done it before, but I want to be able to just tap in and send it, to really just, as I like to say, to shove love, to just shove love until it catches on. It's the next contagion.
Punch in the face with a bunch of love.
Yeah.
Chris, we get a lot of healers through here nowadays.
It's really interesting, right? And it's beautiful. I want to, if it's okay, to talk about, because you mentioned, Noah, the word identity. And what I heard was bing, maybe disidentification. And not so much where you fit in, what are you, but what are you not?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting chills like thinking through this. And it's like, okay, am I Noah? Well, if my name was Steve, I might feel the same. Right. Am I bi, straight, gay? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I think in my heart, I would still feel the same. If I change shirts, right? And does that mean that I'm a businessman? Well, no, like it doesn't change. It just, nothing changes here.
Yeah.
And so maybe consider, rather than figuring out where your place is, begin to look at it from where your place is not.
Okay.
And that might be a quicker path to you breaking through that aspect. And I'm not thinking in terms of sexuality or jobs or doctorates, is the connection to yourself, right? And it's more from there. And okay, so there's fucking trees again. So maybe it's just because we're watching Cobra Kai, but then you're like working on a bonsai tree. And okay, well, this is not an aspect that defines who I am. So let's remove that. And these are just words or feelings or sentiments. And I think you'll find that a very useful exercise. I feel, Christina, as if, and maybe you're a little bit more Buddhist than I am, but there was one of the tenets or the teachings of the Buddha had something to do with removing these forms of identification. And I'll look it up and goes link to it. But it's like, what are you not? What are you not? What are you not? You're not. I don't know if you've heard of the headless way. Have you ever seen that or heard that meditation?
I don't think so.
All right. We'll share it with you after. It's fucking mind blowing as to what it actually reveals. And with the tenets at the end of it is like, okay, I'm just space for the world.
Wow.
Yes. So, right. So we'll share that. And it's part of Sam Harris's Waking Up app. There's a bunch of books and things that he's done, but it's Richard Lang is the teacher that still exists. There's a bunch of free stuff out there that might just be worth you researching.
Yeah,
is that
absolutely
helpful? The disidentification?
Yeah, I find it really interesting because maybe a month and a half ago, I had this, it was my intention for the lunar cycle was to redefine myself, to let go of my old story, to disidentify with what I thought Noah was, or who I thought Noah was, or what I thought was going on here, and to just completely let go of all of it and be okay with that and write something brand new. And I think that that can be really helpful. Absolutely thinking about it, not in terms of, well, what am I, but what am I not? Because I spent a lot of my life not necessarily unsure of my identity, but either rejecting my identity or hiding my identity, or, in some way keeping it from coming to the fore. And so this is, I'm at a place now where I'm willing to throw that book in the fire and to really look at it and bring it out to the front and just be whatever that is and be that thing, and to not be what I'm not, right? Because that's certainly not what I am.
That's the name of the podcast. Great. Good. I'm glad that's helpful.
So I'm going to chime in here unless you have a question about anything that he said.
No, I love this. Keep going.
Okay. So as he was talking about meditation, I also got kind of a meditation for you, a little suggestion. One, and there are hundreds, thousands of ways to meditate, of course, but one that would really resonate with you would be you going out into nature and really, like, I saw you melting into the nature. Like you become the leaves and you become the trees and you become the floor. But you're actually still in human form. Why are you laughing? Does this resonate?
I'm laughing because just yesterday, this is a little silly, but I posted this meme I found onto my Instagram page, and it said, me to my friends, I'm sorry I can't hang out. I have plans later. And it says me later, and there's this old textbook drawing of a tree and a person in these like oral fields, and it says, now let the trees aura blend with your own. And that's like literally what you're saying, is to just go out there and be it.
Well, there you go. I remember, this isn't us. This is like the people. This is the committee watching, and they're like kind of validating the tendencies.
And Noah laughed at that meme, but the reality is that like that meme is really what I want to do. Like, so let's go do that. Clearly,
right? Yes.
So I'm getting a little glimpse of the future as well. Okay, so I saw you also as kind of like Where the Wild Things Are. Like the little boy with the crown that kind of goes out and like dances with the beast.
Is he wearing white?
No, he wasn't. I saw him in the children's book as that boy or whatever it is.
Just cross-referencing. That's all.
Yeah, no. I didn't see any white. I saw actually a lot of brown and green. But it's like dancing and everything in nature. But so that's just a visual for you. The other thing is, so I saw kind of like what you do as you, okay, on a soul level. I saw you look at a woman, man, whatever, but I saw a woman, and the woman is very distraught. Like, not like, this is the representation of the inside of the woman, by the way, and this is the representation of the inside of you. You're just kind of like a beam of light, just there. It's just her body is just so cloudy and just so muffled, and you just like kind of look in, like you're looking around inside of her, and then all of a sudden you go, aha, and you kind of reach in and you pull out this little stone that has little like cracks of light in it, and then you just kind of like shine it up, and it just becomes like very, very like, it's in your hand, it just completely lights up, and then you kind of put it back into her, and then the light kind of grows and kind of lights her up as well, and it starts to kind of naturally start cleaning and purifying all the other like layers. I'm saying that's kind of your jam. That's kind of what you're here to do. Well, there are probably other things. I'm sorry?
Spiritual surgery.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are all kinds of other things, but that's kind of like a representation of like what you're kind of here to do. Before, whether or not you like it or not, that's what you signed up for. And I thought I had something else, but no, that's it for right now. Well,
then I was getting similar. So before you started talking, I said, let's talk about why he's going to school. And so then so what I saw then was just this diagram of like protons, neutrons, electrons spinning around. And so then when you started talking, Christine, I was like, okay, this is where we're getting to some of the good shit as well around like how to do this. So there's certainly is a tendency to be called into putting on a tunic, moving to Venice and carrying sage around and living that sort of a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Is very appealing. And you certainly are capable of doing that. Mm-hmm. Right. That's something that it would be within your wheelhouse. You would fit right in. But what are you going to school for? What's your
positive?
Doctorate in?
Yeah, it's positive organizational psychology, which is a mouthful, and I'm happy to explain if that's helpful.
Well, let me walk through this with you first, and then we can fill it in perhaps. A friend and a teacher of mine, Dr. Carlos Warder, who I have a feeling that you'll meet someday, said that you still need a passport to travel in the land of fools. And fools mean perhaps those that aren't awakened or those who are suffering, right? And I'm not saying that they're fools in the traditional use of the word. And so going through this process of receiving your doctorate gives you the passport to be able to operate under this doctorate while reaching in to these folks that you're working with energetically and polishing the stone and putting it back and lighting them up. So it adds human credibility to the work that you feel called to do, because you have the doctor and the degrees and the certifications and the training, and the psychological background as well, to be able to really connect with and understand. So it establishes a baseline credibility with you and your boyish good looks, where you can then begin to operate on an energetic level, right? It's like, okay, fine. Yes, we're going to blah, 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 blah. But underneath, you're already channeling stuff and shoving love towards this person, right? So there's that grind aspect of it, but that's going to open up a lot of doors for you in the work that you really want to do and are being called to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it helpful?
Yeah,
Is it not what you wanted to hear?
No, it's just it's what I need to hear. The PhD has been way in the back of my brain and just a big anvil just sitting there. And I constantly ask myself, am I actually going to complete this? Is this something I'm actually want to do, try to do, really put my energy and effort into? I've made it this far, but that's no excuse, right? We call that sunk cost fallacy, that just because I made it this far doesn't mean that it's worth my effort to keep going, and it's just a question I don't have an answer to, which maybe this is a good time to think about that, but this is what you've said to me now is something that another friend and mentor has given me, saying, at least get the master's degree out of it, at least, if not going for the whole thing, because of that passport. Legitimize yourself in the eyes of people who are not totally on board with, the rest of the field I'm trying to do to get into.
Yeah. So a passport to the land of fools. Christina, was that a smirk? Oh,
the cat is demanding me at things. That's the smirk is oh, shut the hell up. Cat. No. Yeah. I remember when I said I thought I wrote something down. Well, I remember what it was. I didn't write it down apparently, but it's kind of within what Chris said, actually, which is what you're kind of doing now, or you think you're going to be doing. It's just a cover for other things. So as healers, because Chris and I are, as healers, we tend to gravitate towards professions where you're helping people, but you can't just, it's you're helping, but you can't really pinpoint what's missing. And then you end up doing something a little different. Have I landed at the point at which I want to operate? I don't think so. Have you, Chris?
Oh no, there's no arriving.
Yeah, there's no arriving. That's true.
Right.
But you just get closer and closer to what you feel you should be doing, and something that lights you up and feels right. Do you have any questions or any elaborations on any of that?
Well, there's a lot to elaborate on here. What's funny is just a lot of validation. I'm getting really good at validating myself whether that's validating my experience, my characteristics, or even just validating my intuition. And so it's nice to hear it come from an external source. A lot of the things that I've heard you say are things that I've said and had no idea where it came from. Just a week ago, I said, I know that I'm going to travel in 2021. I know it's going to happen. I'm going to go some places. And immediately what came through my brain was just all of these nature spots. Like, I'm just going to get out into nature. And that just keeps coming through. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I love nature. I got to do it then. And even in terms of like seeing me out in the desert, it's one of my favorite places. Is there something wild and wonderful and weird about it that it provides just the right setting to go ahead and tap in without much effort at all for me. And, you know, talking about what I want to do with my own spiritual growth, like I see myself in a word, like on a shamanic path, you know, like I'd love to just take people out into a desert, have that kind of a retreat, and, you know, work through whatever it is we got to work through, clean them out, send them back, you know, take the next group next month, you know, whatever that is. Life-term goal, I'd like to have some kind of a healing collective with people like the two of you, yoga instructors, you know, like alternative nutritionists, like whatever those things are, get the non-Western medicines that have been around for millennia and have an HQ for that, and then create a brand for that. So when there's somebody in Kansas City who wants to do a healing event, I can slap my brand on it and people will say, this is a legitimate event. And we can continue to spread this kind of healing work because I truly believe in it. And there's so much benefit in it. So all of these are just things that are like reinforcing what I've been telling myself and like trusting. But up to this point is largely just trusting that, like, well, I don't know where it came from, but I know that I felt it. And it was a pretty big yes. And there's, I wish I could remember the name of the guy. A couple of years ago, I heard on a podcast or something, he said he lives his life by one rule. It's either fuck yes or no. And my caveat to that is that, you know, sometimes the fuck yes sounds like a maybe if you're not used to listening, if you're not sure what that jolt of energy feels like. So that's just what I throw out there to people in general. But I've felt it pretty loud and clear over the last year and a half, really, at various points in a visceral way. Like I feel a physical jolt of energy through my body. And so that's like, I'm getting a lot more of that and leaning more into that feeling, that intuitive feeling of knowing and trusting that. And still I add on that it's still validating to now sit with you all who have been doing this, who have some experience in this, and just sending the same message that's telling me wherever I'm getting it from, it seems like you're getting the same thing.
Oh, you get it.
Yeah.
And that's really the beauty of it is that, and Christine, I'll speak for you because it's probably the same, and that we get these voices, these inclinations that have been going on since we were kids, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's not like it necessarily comes from outside of you, right? It's like, it's just your inner voice. And it's like, well, I guess I should probably do this. And then you end up not doing it. And then you have an experience where, you know, someone's in your field and delivering the same message, and you learn how to trust it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so when this comes up and it's resonating, or it's the exact same words, right, that I actually was thinking about last night, then of course it makes sense to lean into this collective consciousness even more so, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm a big proponent of learning how to find your own answers. That's a far stickier solution than just sitting somewhere and giving someone a handful of mushrooms and saying, okay, how was it? Right? You feel better?
Yeah.
You know, there's the work that goes in, there's the work during and the work after. But ultimately, you know, when people find their own answers, they latch onto it because it's real for them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I wish I had questions.
No, well, I mean, I know we're bumping up.
Get what you got.
Yeah, no, but I know we're bumping up. What do we have left, Christina? 10 minutes?
Yes.
All right. We like to keep them under an hour.
Yeah.
So my eyes all super twitchy, and I'm just going to say this, Christina, and let you run with it.
Okay.
There's a lot to do here with Noah as it relates to past life and in between life work. So when I say that to you, and it's like, this is clear as day for me, if you had an understanding of the possibility of you having self-selected, right? And that opens things up for you here, but to understand your journey across time. And this came to me when we were talking about, like, you said the word landing, and then it's like, well, no, there's no arriving. There's always a striving. You get closer and closer and closer. But that's not just here on the human level. That's just us as energy or as little number 22 is, or whatever the number was in the movie Soul, you know, just still chasing source, right? And trying to reconnect back to that. But when I say past life, Christina, what came up for you as it relates to Mr. Boyd?
Yes. That it's a can of worms, let me tell you. That's why I'm like, whoa. Don't let it all seep through at the same time, you know? No, definitely. I'm getting more of, there should be like a trickle at first of, I feel like before the past life, it's a big issue that's coming up is having a confident, sturdy way to tap in a little bit more efficiently. And then after that, past lives. So past lives, hold on. Oh yeah. A lot of spiritual past lives. Getting a lot of like priest kind of vibes and just leaders of clergy, smatterings here and there, but also a lot of peasant life. And yeah, there's a lot to definitely explore, and there's a lot of soul remembering to do, especially with the lives that you were involved with, leadership. And there were a lot of lessons that can kind of give you a little cheat sheet. So, you know, you can bring it with you, and you don't have to like relearn that in order to get a little bit farther down the path for yourself. So I'm sorry to be so general, but I feel like it's a lot. If I were to really like be like, oh, here this, and we would be definitely over 10 minutes. So
we need another hour.
Yeah, more than that. You have no idea. Yeah. So does that all make sense, Chris? I know I kind of rambled on, but it was
no. But I've been getting quite a bit there, and I just wanted to plant that seed.
Right.
Did you grow up going to church? Any sort of organized religion?
Yeah, I grew up Muslim, going to the mosque.
Okay. So what I'm seeing is a version of you in like a long black, like, I don't know, it would be considered like a tunic, but think of someone like a headmaster or someone who's running a seminary for a Catholic organization. And it's kind of like olden times. Okay, of course it is. But it's not happy. So when Christina said priest, and I was like, oh, that's not a good, like there's a lot of learning that's going on from there. It is very strict, very rigid, very regimented, and using doctrine, right, and ideology as a way to rule, and as a way to exert your will over others, as a way for you to get to the proverbial heaven. Now, it feels very much like true believing, like this is the book, this is what we're doing. And then it was still very empty, right? So we're getting extremes. And I think why this one's relevant is because you have this extreme of a very regimented, indoctrinated individual who's ruling roughshod over a group of, people, not parishioners, but like students, future priests, like that sort of a vibe. And then there's this gentle, heart-based Noah there as well. So it would make sense why you may have an aversion to any one dogmatic way of operating or thinking, regardless of the religion, and why you're leaning more into this. So there's some learnings there from that experience that help validate the path that you're on now, and why you chose to be Noah Boyd in this particular expression, right? With all the bells and whistles that come alongside it. It's really interesting and compelling work. Yeah, that's another thing that your neighbor, I'm sure, will be happy to sit and geek around with you. Do that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's meant to more plant seeds than it was to provide any sort of answers. But there's cause and effect, right? There's balance. There's yin and yang. There's masculine divine energy and feminine divine energy, and there's always balance. There's justice. There's injustice. There's good. There's bad. So yeah, you're a mean ass priest.
That might not be the only time he was. Some sort of clergy. There's a lot, but yeah. That's interesting. You got that though. Yeah, I'm not like I honestly I'm so overwhelmed right now that I have to like block that, just because that's so much. And then I'm actually feeling kind of I think I'm feeling like what Noah's feeling right now, which is this electricity.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like shooting and like all of a sudden kind of like a, oh, okay, I get it a little bit. And even though you kind of already did, but it's just, oh my goodness. And so it's like, I feel like your heart is singing, and I got the song, Listen to Your Heart for Roxette, the original, before your time, but
yes, right on.
So one thing that I have been told to tell you is that there are some things that you need to explore in solitary, and you're being led to do that. So you can trust that if you're feeling the pull, then that's the way you go. I've been kind of asked to tell you when you do want to go another step or want to know the next step, then I'm around the corner, and you reach out to me versus me reaching out to you. So it's kind of on a as needed basis. If you feel like you need a past life regression, when you're ready to read Akashic Records and things like that, you reach out to me, because I need to frame that for you, because again, it's kind of going to be when you feel ready. And no pressure that you're on a timeline or anything like that. It's like, oh, now I can explore. Okay, let me call Christina real quick and whatever. Okay?
And this is Chris the human saying, where you would reach out to me is when you want to talk about pharmacology.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Duly noted.
Cool.
I had a little smirky grin when he was talking about the retreats with the yoga.
Yeah.
And all of those things, because that's what Chris does.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like Chris Jr. That's why I was smirking. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, it gives me hope, right? It gives me hope, and particularly in such a polarizing time for many people, that folks like Noah exist. So thank you for showing up. Now, to that end, because we're bumping up against the hour, we don't know much about you on the human level. How would people find you? How do they get a hold of you? We'll put some things in show notes. You do coaching. What kind of coaching? What type of person is called to work with you?
Okay. People could find me on the internet. I have a website, resonance-services.com. And then I also have an Instagram building out for that, which is resonance.nb. So my initials. And that's how you could find me. You can send me an email through the website, through, message me on Instagram, any of those things. And the kind of coaching that I do is what I call authenticity coaching. It is first asking individuals, what are you trying to do? Or even asking organizations, what are you trying to do? At which point they'll say, well, I want to get X, Y, and Z done. And then saying why. And asking why, usually until we get to a value deep down because of some childhood experience, usually. And at that point, we can recognize where this thing came from, acknowledge it, accept it, let it go, and take hold of the value, use it as a strength, and be that authentic self moving forward. So that's the kind of coaching that I do. The kind of people that are drawn towards me are thus far people that have been going through it in some way or another and have tried maybe to use a program or have talked to a therapist of some sort, and they decide, I want a slightly different angle. Let's look at this from the positive psychology side of things. Instead of saying, hey, what's wrong with me? How do you fix me? Let's look at what's right with me and how can I exert that bestness? Usually these are people that I'm already acquainted with. So friends, family, like that's where I kind of started my network. Because naturally I have been giving them that, and I've just turned it into a job basically, because I'm getting called to this. Why don't I just get paid for it too? So that's the kind of folks that find me. And I'm admittedly a bit particular. I like to interview anybody I work with so that they can interview me while I can interview them, and we decide, are we a good working match? Because I will ask people to do things like meditate a little bit, or to tell me about some things that might be painful, but then also to be there as the coach to push them, to encourage them to see the best that I can't help but see in them, and to ask the right questions so that they really can do the healing themselves. At the end of the day, the only thing I ask for any client is to be open to healing themselves, because they're the one who does the work. I'm just a facilitator.
Well, thanks for showing up in a big way, Noah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is really delightful, and I can't wait for what comes next, honestly.
Well, it's all, I would say within you, but it's around you too. Mm-hmm. So yeah. And thanks, neighbor. And I'm so glad I met you, 2 or 3 days ago.
I think just 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, where did this guy come from? He's just right over there. But yeah, thank you so much. And Chris, thank you as well, as usual. Mwah.
Bye, y'all.
See you guys later.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye.